Welcome to episode 33 of the Halving Report. I'm Brad Mines, your host. There's about 1,300 days left until the next Bitcoin halving. The price of Bitcoin is about $11,500 US. Today, we're interviewing Justin Rhedrick of BitcoinVegan.com. Justin has a very inspiring Bitcoin story that links back to Bitcoin Zay, and you'll even find his name in his book, Bitcoin and Black America. So let's jump right to it. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. This is episode 33 of the Halving Report.
Hey, how you doing?
Really appreciate it, man. So one of the first things I like to ask people that I meet in the Bitcoin space is, what is your Bitcoin story? How did you first hear about it, and what is it that made you so passionate about it?
So my Bitcoin story is a wild one. I first heard about Bitcoin from Bitcoin Zay. He's real big in this space, but I first heard about Bitcoin from him.
What's his Twitter?
Bitcoin Zay, or you might see Bitcoin and Black America.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know him. I follow him.
So I've been knowing him since I was about 12 years old, and it was very ironic because at that time in my life, I had just gotten out of prison in like 2014. So I met up with him in like 2016, and I just said to myself, I know something big is going on in the world, that like if you're just there early enough, the barrier to entry would be so low. It'll take some time. I was just ready to commit to something that was life-changing. And so when he first told me about Bitcoin, I knew nothing of financial. I didn't really have too much financial education. Like I heard about investments, but I didn't really know how to get started. But when he told me about Bitcoin, it was just so simple. He broke it down in like the most simplest terms, I guess, to me. It says decentralized money. You can use it like a storage of value. You can send money. It's better than gold. And I was looking at the graphs on his Instagram one day, and I'm like, okay, like it's had some major dips, and unlike most people, the dips is what made me realize it was real. And it was this long time ago, it was like 2016, I got caught up into like a LinkedIn platform scam, and they used Bitcoin. And in my mind, I said, okay, Bitcoin isn't a scam, but this platform was. And so I just opened my mind to it, opened my eyes to it. I ran across some other people in the Bitcoin space that just really helped me pour knowledge in, and I just started buying it when I first heard about it, because I was in that mindset of looking for something life-changing. And so that was around the time Bitcoin was like $678. And when the first time I started buying it, and it had gone to $20,000 in like 15 to 18 months, like to me, that was like a 20x on my investment, or better. And I was just blown away. I was shocked. I was like, whoa, like more people need to hear about this. So I started doing consultations, little small consultations, just on Instagram. But then I recently just put together a course, because it's like, people don't have any basic information. And the internet, outside of YouTubers, but even that, like nobody gives you good basic information for Bitcoin. Everybody wants to talk over everyone's heads, like, oh, I have all this great investment option trading. You can do this, that, and the third. They don't even know how to work a wallet. They don't even know what private keys are. So it's like you're throwing people all this high level information on a high level tech. And it's really not that high level, but if you've been to Bitcoin a while, you could tell someone like, yeah, just set up a wallet, and they'll look at you like, what do you mean? So I started realizing just how important the bare basics of Bitcoin was. So, people don't get tripped up in scams, and, even if you're not a trader, you could just use it. Just very basic ways of using it.
I want to get into many of the things that you mentioned. I want to back it up a little bit. Bitcoin Zay, you said you've known him since 12 years old. Could you tell me, how did you meet? Did you meet him in school, or were you guys neighbors?
So we lived in the same city, Charlotte, North Carolina, and we played for the same AAU basketball organization, the Charlotte Nets. And so, you just go to practice over and over, and you end up forming a relationship, and we just been real cool ever since. Like ever since we were 12 years old, been playing basketball, and he's been in Charlotte. Sometimes you lose connections with some people, but like when I caught back up with him, I met up with him at a gas station here in Charlotte, and he said, "Justin." I'm like, "Who is that?" And he's like, Zay. I said, oh, all right. And I, just exchange information. He said, yeah, follow me on Instagram, Bitcoin Zay. I said, what? What is that? But then
Wow,
so
that's an awesome Bitcoin story. I mean, and like I have the same relationship now with a lot of people, like that I've known from high school. Now that they see Bitcoin, and then they see when Bitcoin goes on a run, they see it in the news, and they say, oh, this Brad guy that I went to high school is all about Bitcoin, and they'll shoot me a message and be like, yo, what's up with Bitcoin? And then it's like where do I begin, right? Like so it's always a challenge beginning. So mad respect for setting this up, a website, and trying to teach people about Bitcoin, and like I definitely been a victim of a scam in Bitcoin. I think it takes a lot of courage to recognize that Bitcoin blockchain is still revolutionary technology, but there's so many toxic things built around it because it's so valuable that everyone's trying to get it, right? So there's definitely a lot to teach people there. I want to ask you about your veganism. I'm also a plant-based eater, so I wanted to ask you if you've always been a vegan, or was this some point in your life something that you learned? What made you vegan, and when did you come to that realization?
It was like 2015, November 2015. I was boxing at this gym and I was training, and I just wanted to be like real clean and healthy. And so I guess, and the movie Social Dilemma is out there now, right? So we're just gonna say the algorithm just started sending me veganism stuff, and I actually got hooked to it. And the first person I ever heard about was Dr. Sebi. And so I just said, I like this, and it was something else to commit to. Like I wanted to, when I came home from prison, Brad, I wanted to commit to something totally different. Like I did not like the standard way of doing things of veganism. In fact, going vegan is what helped me even embrace Bitcoin. Like, as people would down talk me about it, they would say, you don't know enough. Well, you just need to do this. Like, no one else is doing that. And that excited me, because that meant I was an early adopter. I didn't even know what early adopter meant, but it was like I got tired of being late to the party. And I mean, veganism has been around forever, but it's just still the same within the generation I'm in. So one of the first things I did, I started cooking and delivering vegan food at my house. I created a company called Vegan on the Go. It didn't last long, but it was just a way for me to try to get into being an entrepreneur. I got tired of doing all the manual labor jobs they gave people with records, and I knew I was more intelligent than the jobs they were given. So I just said, I'm gonna create my own lane. And then again, I was talking to Zay, and I said, Zay, can I charge people Bitcoin for this? He said, yeah. He said, bring your skills to the space. Like, you don't have to be so techish, but you can bring your skills to the space. And so I started accepting Bitcoin for food. Matter of fact, Zay bought some fajitas from me. They had to be like $15 then, I guess. And those same fajitas now are worth like $300. It was like 0.02 Bitcoin or something back then. And I just started. I just wanted to be all the way totally different. So the veganism story just started me 2015. Trying to go vegan. Then I had my daughter. I wanted to teach her a different way of eating, different lifestyle of eating.
So would it be fair to say then your veganism was fueled by the knowledge that it's a healthier lifestyle for human beings to not ingest milk and meat products?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
Cool.
It was just life changing in itself. And that whole time I told Zay, I said, I don't know what company I'm gonna build, but Bitcoin Vegan is gonna be the name, and because it was just that transformational to me. Like, I had to stretch my mind, and within that I learned how to move to the beat of my own drum. And going vegan, and especially Bitcoin, gave you that opportunity. Like, people just look at the price of Bitcoin. That's something like that what grabs everybody's attention, but you can't really, I mean, you could, but it's hard to explain to someone, just meeting them or them asking you about Bitcoin, that it's a decentralized currency that you can just live your own life off of. Like, that'll just blow them away. But everything was outside the norm. It was outside the box. It gave me total control over what I wanted to do with my life. And that's why that's how the two even came about. And ever since then, that's just a lifestyle I chose to live. That point in time in my life was very big, very transformational. I will say that.
I think going vegan, obviously, I practice the same diet, so I'm a big fan of it. Sometimes difficult culturally to live your everyday like that. And it's funny, in the Bitcoin space, you see so many big meat eaters. I'm not sure. Have you experienced the Bitcoin maximalist red meat eaters on Twitter before?
Nah, not yet, but I'm sure I am.
Probably coming down the pipeline. But But just want to dive now into your bitcoinvegan.com. Maybe you could tell us what your website's all about, what you're trying to accomplish.
Overall, my website is an introduction to what I do, like as a coach, and just give people a way to see all the little different avenues. But the main thing that I love for people to see is like on there you'll see what is Bitcoin, and it's the pathway. I feel it's the pathway for anyone to get introduced to Bitcoin in a way that works, that is safe. I'm not saying that Bitcoin itself is safe, but for people to be able to digest it. My goal with my website is to impact people in a way that causes a change in their life, whether that's in Bitcoin, whether that's in like, some type of personal development, anything. But the purpose is for you to know, like, I can live the life I've been dreaming about. Like I said in the beginning, asset going from $678 to $20K in the year has been unheard of in human time. But you'll have people out here who won't even know this type of thing exists. They'll think they have to continue in the terrible rat race that society has given them. And so, I want my website, and I want my website, especially, what is Bitcoin, of the course I have, to allow people to know, like, you can live a different life. Yeah, it just takes a little bit of work. It just takes, a little bit of mind shift, a little bit of knowledge, but more importantly, it takes applying. And to give people like a real face to look towards. Like, you have people in the space who are so big that the average person can't get in contact with them. Or, you have other people here who are just running different scams or running different ways of hurting people. And that's not what I look to provide. So I look for my website to provide growth and uncomfortable, comfortable growth, if that makes sense. Because we all know growth is uncomfortable, but for people to know there's someone they can trust in this space that's not going to lead them astray.
Now, what's the format of your course that you provide? Is it videos? Is it interactive?
So it is video. At first it was live, but it's videos now. They're all recorded videos. Now there is a component where people can purchase the live streams. The Q&As that come on once a week, and that's where I answer in-depth questions, give a better insight, because when you're online learning things, you have all these questions and you don't have anyone to reach out to. Or you write a comment and they don't respond for another week, and it leaves you stuck. But the main format is all videos, and I use a unique way to break them down. I like what I teach using mind maps, and I learned about mind maps in my memory studies when I teach people how to enhance their memory. I use mind maps because it's less wording but more images. And so Bitcoin being so complex, I don't want to use a lot of words on people so they get caught up there. I don't want them to get caught up on words or lingo or language or high level things like that. Just give your mind an image to attach it to, and you'll start to be able to connect the dots from there. But it's all based upon, what is Bitcoin? How does it work? Why is it valuable? How do you send it? Even how to use the blockchain. Just different ways that someone could be independently have an independent knowledge of how to use Bitcoin.
Now, on your website, it talks about using your Bitcoin as another stream of income. What is your strategy within Bitcoin once you already own it? Do you recommend hodling it? Do you lend it out for an annual percentage, on a lending platform, or like what's your strategy after you actually buy Bitcoin?
Well, my strategy personally, I tell people I'm a big fan of hodling or trying to invest in different streams, like possibly a Bitcoin ATM when you're ready to understand how those work. I'm not too the lending platform, so I don't give out that type of information. I do know of people that do trading and try to connect people with the best person that I trust. But my strategy is something like, I hodl for long term, and if I have a goal for something in the next few months, then I'll hodl for that. But just save up, have a different strategy of saving for it. But I always talk hodling because that's something that's easy for the beginner person to understand.
And how do you recommend people secure their cryptocurrency, or maybe how do you approach it yourself? Do you like custodial services, or do you like cold storage, or a certain amount on a hot wallet? How do you manage that?
I'm all about cold storage. Like, really, in my own mind, I don't think a person should have well, for me personally, I probably wouldn't have over maybe even $200 on my hot wallet. But that's because where I am in my life, I'm just big on the cold storage because I'm holding it. Now, if I'm somewhere that I know I'm gonna need Bitcoin, then I could take some off my cold wallet and put it on my phone. But I'm very big on using the cold storage wallets because it's offline and you just got to keep up with your private keys. A lot of people, they want to keep it on their phone, and we've all heard of ransomware. We've heard of, the different ways people devices can get hacked or caught up into certain situations. So cold storage is what I recommend the absolute most when it comes to keeping your Bitcoin safe and secure.
Absolutely. I'm with you there. Bitcoin security is definitely key. I mean, I don't even trust even insurance backed exchanges. I'd rather just use yourself, right? But
Exactly. Like you have it on there, or like in 2018 when the price was going crazy, everybody was going crazy buying it, and things were slowing up, and Coinbase was sending everybody that message saying like, we'll get back to you when we can. It's like, yo, like
yeah,
if I had like $10,000 that was once $1,000 on there, I don't want you to get back to me when you can.
exactly.
I
Exactly. And you don't see it very often right now because Bitcoin hasn't really exploded since the last halving that just occurred in May, right? So once you see the bull market go up again, then you're going to see all these. I predict anyway that we're going to see these problems like you said that just happened in 2017. I experienced the same thing. Lots of banks were cutting off credit cards. You couldn't buy anymore. You couldn't withdraw anymore. There's just so many issues, whether it be with congestion or growth, or whether it be just having your own private keys and being able to use Bitcoin as it was intended, right? Getting rid of the middlemen, getting rid of the banks. But you specifically talked a lot about helping people, getting out of the old legacy financial system. That's they devalue the currency, right? So I mean, your labor gets cheaper over time. There's better ways to save money, and what you and I both promote is Bitcoin, obviously. How do you see Bitcoin as a effect on a macro scale?
Well, we can look at it during the coronavirus when you look at it as like, saving the dollar, saving, your labor. I know in like March 10th, when coronavirus was just taking a foothold here in America, Bitcoin was at like 5,000 some odd dollars, and that everything in the world was just tanking. Everything in the world was tanking. Matt, all of a sudden you see Bitcoin, doubling its value in the middle of a pandemic. And there alone showed like its overall use case on that level. And so on a very larger scale, I see that you're always gonna have a few institutions that are gonna be open to it. But I believe like you're just the more knowledge, the more widespread adoption, the more correct ways of using it, people will start noticing like just how $20 an hour, 10 years ago doesn't get you. I mean, $20 an hour now doesn't get you nowhere of what it got you 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And so, like, you have to have you. I think people have to also have a great value and understanding of what money is, and what makes this money valuable. I remember speaking to someone who works for a bank here called Bank of America, and I said, what makes money valuable? And they responded by saying, and this is a high level person, and they responded by saying, well, just because everybody accepts it, everybody uses it. And that was very odd to me because it's like you work for a bank, but you don't know what money is.
Man, I feel you on that. I speak to people all the time that are in high level positions of not just in banks, but in all walks of life. And when I hear them talk about money and their general misunderstanding of how it works.
Yeah, and it baffles me. It's just crazy. It's almost to the point like, I don't want to say we're doomed, but some guy had put up a post on Instagram. There was this one individual talking about fractional banking and how every bank, every system is flawed because it doesn't really have any money in there. And it's like every so often you start seeing these bubbles pop and people just go along to the next thing. And it's sad that no one really realizes like even with the stimulus checks, that's just printing more money. That's not really fixing the issue. That's like putting a band-aid on something that needs surgery. And
Yeah.
it's like it's almost to the point like someone knows it's not going to work, but the everyday person doesn't really care about that. They just care about what they can get in the present moment. And I think that's one thing that's really hard for people to grasp because their entire life and identity is built on what they were told or what they thought money was. And when you get them a real breakdown view of what it is, that scares them because it's not the fact that they're not going to make no money. It's the fact that they never actually knew what value was, and nobody wants to be honest enough to say like, "Wow, I never knew that, and I might need to change that."
So you talk to a lot of people about Bitcoin and their early understanding of it. What would you say is the biggest misunderstanding of Bitcoin?
Biggest misunderstanding. Man, I can start from saying, oh, the government controls it because they don't know technology. Me myself, I tried to build a lightning node 2018, and let me tell you, that would have to be some of the hardest stuff because I have no tech experience. But I just said, let me try it, like copy and paste. There was this one guy's name is Staticus on Twitter, and I was, well, let me just try it. Me and a few other guys, call themselves Murex Bitcoin Solutions. Me and a few other guys were trying to build a node. And what was so surprising was like I had to build a wallet and build a node, but I actually got to see what technology was on the back end. And I'm like, there's no way that government will give you this much hands-on access to something this powerful. So that's a big misunderstanding. Another misunderstanding I hear a lot, people believe that they'll turn the internet off. And the internet is connected to everything now. And here's something people don't actually think about. Social interactions was turned off before the internet was. Shuttering indoors, COVID-19, social distancing, social interactions were turned off before the internet was. And people still have this notion of thinking like, well, they might just turn the internet off because Bitcoin is so powerful. And the other one is like, well, they use Bitcoin on the dark web. And it's like people have been using money and gold for the same thing. It's just who is telling you this information.
Yeah, it's like they hold Bitcoin to some higher standard than any other asset class that we've ever seen before for some reason. It's like it really seems like they're stretching when I hear people criticizing Bitcoin, it's like this should be the most, like, I'm so passionate about it because it fights the very root of corruption when it comes to governments being able to print money for whatever they please or being able to seize your assets. There's just so much sovereignty involved for the individual. It's so powerful and revolutionary. But yeah, you know what? Now that you mentioned those, I hear the same thing a lot from people I know too. They criticize Bitcoin because, the government controls it. They're going to shut it off whenever it gets too popular. Like, well, if that would have already happened by now if that was the case.
Bitcoin has been around for 11 years. In the tech world, like that's almost forever. Like you've had plenty of opportunities to shut it down. There have been plenty of opportunities to hack it, and there have been attempts where they've all have failed. And I think that's one thing people don't want to get comfortable with is the fact that you actually want to see Bitcoin get tested. Like you want to see it get tested. You want to see how strong it is. And one of the greatest things is you have some of the smartest people in the world building on it. You always have people going to build on it. They find ways to do some high tech stuff. And oftentimes people have to stop thinking like, oh, I'm going to find the next big one. It's like you haven't even seen how big Bitcoin can get to even look for the next one, the next big thing. We haven't even experienced hyper Bitcoinization yet.
Segueing into altcoins, then how do you feel about altcoins? I know, like for me, when I talk to new people, I say just hold on to Bitcoin, and I say don't worry about altcoins. Bitcoin's your safest bet in the cryptocurrency world. It's king. It'll probably stay king for a long time. But you yourself, do you dabble into the altcoin world?
I haven't really bought altcoins since like 2016, man. And even then, it was nothing like how Bitcoin was. Like, I purchased Litecoin before. Of course, I purchased Ethereum. I think every human has. But like once I started, one thing I started noticing was I'm kind of a contrarian to things. So sometimes I don't really believe in diversifying a whole lot, especially when I know I have the winner. Like it's like if I'm Floyd Mayweather's dad, and I remember a reporter asked him, he said, well, they said other trainers have won Fighter of the Year. They have seven other different fighters who are doing well, and you only have Floyd Mayweather. He said, I got the greatest one of all time. Why I need anybody else? And I started taking that thought paradigm. It's like, y'all can buy these other altcoins, and we're not even talking about Ethereum. We're talking about like the ones that people just try to find to hope to do well, right? And it's like, first of all, they're hard to get into, they're hard to get out of when they're doing well, and they're doing bad when Bitcoin is doing bad. And it's like this money could be going somewhere else in my eyes. And a lot of them, like I'm a Bitcoin person all the way through. And that's why I just tell people, like, I mean, number one reason is why don't nobody know what Satoshi Nakamoto is. So when it comes down to it, you have nobody to apply pressure to. That sticks out a lot to me. Like he could be it could be a whole lot alien. You know what I mean? Like nobody really knows. But that's a major thing to me. It's like you have this revolutionary thing that no one can actually find. And even that in itself is some people it's eerie, but to me I think it's amazing. So I mean when it comes down to it, I can't really give out too much advice on other cryptos.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was, before I really started, speaking publicly on Twitter about the space, I tried to take in a lot because there's so many coins out there coming out all the time, and taking a hard stance on accumulating Bitcoin as opposed to any of other cryptocurrencies is definitely, in my opinion, a good one and a safe one, and security, of course. Are you predicting a bull run in the next year or two, or do you have any price predictions that you'd be willing to make?
Let me think. So last time we had a major bull run was like all of 2017 into like 2018. Would you say that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could see six figures. There's some things that have to happen first. Lightning Network has to become more mainstream so people can see how, because that was a big thing back then. They say, oh, well, Bitcoin is great, but Visa has faster, payments, and they don't really. Like, because as you know, yeah, I can swipe my debit card and it says accepted, but it takes almost 3 days to a week to get to my bank, as opposed to it might take you 10 minutes, but the transaction is final. But that's a whole different conversation. But just say, Lightning Network keeps going away, keeps on the up and up. It becomes more mainstream. People start seeing how easy it is to use. Governments keep fucking up as they do. I can eat, and just this bigger mainstream money, like Square Cash just put $50 million in Bitcoin. And to be honest, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but is it really a lot for what really goes on? I can definitely see six figures, probably late 2021.
Yeah. No, that's seems very probable and even conservative compared to some of the other predictions I've seen out there. Do you have any, like, I know you follow Bitcoin Zay, or you're good buds with Bitcoin Zay. Have you read Bitcoin in Black America?
Yeah, I'm in the book actually.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, like if anyone has the book, they scroll to the back where he mentions, people. I'm back there as Justin Rhedrick, Bitcoin Vegan LLC, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Wow, man. Yeah, no, man. I mean, I've seen, like I said, I've seen Bitcoin Zay here and there. I've been following him maybe for like a couple months, taking a look here and there. And I definitely know the book title, and I've seen all over Twitter, of course. I just wanted to know what the book is about and if it's a good read.
It's a great read. The book it starts out a little bit about Zay's life. It's almost a book about like just how Bitcoin has been revolutionary for him. How he got his foothold in, and then later on in the books he just starts talking about ways that it can really transform Black America, and how it can really transform just the world, like impoverished world as a whole. He speaks highly about how Bitcoin is like, like we said, it's a sovereign currency, it's a sovereign tech, and just goes into detail about just how useful it is, how it's separated, and talks about how it goes in, talks about sometimes where government corruption is and where Bitcoin can fix that government corruption.
Well, it definitely sounds like a book for me, so I might add it to my collection. I'm getting through to the end of my questions here, Justin. So just putting it out there, if there's any final comments you want to make or any questions for me. If not, maybe just tell us where to follow you and your website domain.
Yeah, I got a question. Where do you see Bitcoin being? Like, what are your price predictions?
Well, from everything I've seen and the way it's programmed, I'm seeing a guy I follow and interviewed on my podcast a little while back. He was saying the supply and demand economics should be fully realized by the end of October, and he thinks Bitcoin should be testing and at least testing new all-time highs by the end of this month. Now, I don't know, take that with a grain of salt, of course, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it trickling up into $16,000 in the next few months. Like you said, Square just made a $50 million investment. People are really waking up to it. Institutional investors. Bitcoin's never had more adoption than it has today. We're seeing over 200-day moving average all-time highs. So I'm very bullish. And part of the reason I've named my podcast The Halving Report is I try to educate about the halving, and I try to tell people accumulate according to the halvings and in these cycles that Bitcoin is supposed to be somewhat predictable. I'm not sure if you follow the stock to flow model, but 100 trillion on Twitter. I highly recommend following that account. I love that account. I kind of see that as in the charts that they post is something that Bitcoin will most likely follow, or else Bitcoin may not be what it's out to be if it doesn't go stay within these predictions and models, I guess, just with the halving and the supply of money, right? And all the things that make a currency valuable. Bitcoin owns in on all these things. So
it's big that you say that predictable part, because I forgot who I was watching when I very first got into Bitcoin. But they would say people would run away from the volatility, but they did not know that the volatility is what made it predictable. Like Bitcoin being volatile at certain times of a year, at least the past 4 years that I've been in, it's almost been following that same trend. Just the money, just the price is different. But that same bull run, bear run type of thing. And honestly, I'm praying for a bear run. I always pray for bear. I used to always want to go high. I'm looking for a bear run, looking for a little bit of FUD, but that's like experience talking. But no matter how it looks, I feel like it doesn't really matter. Bitcoin is going to do what it's going to do. And with what you said before, about the predictability and all the money that's coming in, all-time highs on that level, Bitcoin has a very great chance of getting harder and harder to obtain for some people. And I think one of the craziest parts is, people are going to know people like me, they're going to know people like you, and they're going to be playing this thing off to the point it's like 100K, and it's like, man, I don't even think I can get it, and it's going to be hard for me to tell them like you can. I've run across people who say, yeah, I heard about Bitcoin at $9 and $40. And a part of me, I would be embarrassed to say that, I would be truly embarrassed to say that, because it's like, okay, you heard about it 40, that's cool, but you also heard about it at $600, and you didn't think it was, good enough to try then. That's doable for some people, but that part is neither here nor there. But I do feel the same way you do about, predictability and all-time highs. So to end off, people can find me at www.bitcoinvegan.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Bitcoin_vegan. Instagram is Bitcoin Vegan. And my email is justin@bitcoinvegan.com. I want to say thank you for having me on here. And I love for people to, check out if you're a newbie hearing this, check out my What is Bitcoin course. If you're experienced in the space, follow me and, interact with me. I'm always open to next level Bitcoin knowledge, because I know I don't know it all and I don't want to act like I do.
Justin, I really appreciate your time, and I genuinely enjoyed our conversation tonight. Please stay in touch, and thanks again for coming on the podcast, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks for tuning into episode 33 of The Halving Report. Please click the like and subscribe button, and we will see you back next time.